Welcome back to Calculated Risk, CFB by the Numbers. I am Tyler Shoemaker. He's Kelley Ford, and we are back ready to preview week one. We did our week zero recap on Monday. We're recording here late Wednesday night. Looking ahead, we've got a full slate Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I can't wait. Going to be just, I'm not going to leave my couch for the next several days. So, Kelley, how's it going? How excited are you for this big slate we've got coming up?
It's going great, Tyler. I'm excited to be here talking about these great games we've got. Like you said, it's really a festival in week one. You start on Thursday, you don't end until Monday. It's the only time all regular season that we have a week like this. It's a lot for those of us who are talking about games, writing about games, making power ratings, putting out graphics. It's a lot, but this is exactly what we train for. This is what we are looking forward to all summer. So I'm enjoying it. The hustle and bustle. It's crazy. It's fun. But now we get to talk some college football games, which that's what this is all about. We get to see these teams in action. We get to get some real in-season data. So much more fun to play with, in my opinion, than the preseason stuff. This is what it's all about. I cannot wait, Tyler. It's going to be great.
Yep. Can't wait. So let's kick it off here with the biggest game of the weekend, the only game of the weekend that features, I don't know about you, but features two top 10 teams in my ratings, and that's LSU and Florida State playing on a neutral field on Sunday night. I've got LSU ranked 5th in the country, Florida State ranked 8th. LSU's 14th on offense and 7th on defense for me, whereas Florida State is 9th on offense and 20th on defense. So both pretty balanced, both really good on both sides of the ball. Should mention the line on this game currently, LSU minus 2.5. It's pretty much been 2.5 all summer. Not much movement there with the over-under of 56.5. I actually project this LSU minus 1.5-ish, like 1.7, with a total of 56. So I'm right on the number there on the total. I give LSU a 52% chance to win this. Estimated score is about 29-27. And just kind of some ramifications that we're looking at here for these teams. So right now I've got LSU projected at 9.6 wins on the season. But with a win in this game, that bumps up to 10.1. But with a loss, takes them down to 9.1 on the season. So, I mean, that's a big difference, especially when you're talking about potentially competing for the playoff. And on the other side, I've got Florida State projected just over 10 wins at 10.07. But if they win this, that goes up to 10.59, which then would make their most likely record this year 11-1, which has huge CFP implications already here in week one. So a lot on the line here in this game one for these teams. Kelley, what do your numbers say about this?
Yeah, it's my number one game of the week. It's got a watchability score of 96.6. So for me, I'm looking at what's the projected average quality of the teams, their average KFord ratings, and what's the projected competitiveness of the game. What's the projected KFord spread? That then gets mashed together into kind of a formula, and it spits out a number 0 to 100, a 96.6, number one game in week one, top 5 game all year. I'm very much looking forward to this game. My numbers actually have LSU minus 4, Tyler, so I'm a little bit more bullish on the Tigers than you. It's a 61% win expectancy for me. I have LSU power rated number 5 as well, but the difference for me, Florida State power rated number 11. You said it's a top 10 matchup for you. Florida State was my number 10 team in the preseason. Last week, Notre Dame, given what they did to Navy and impressive fashion that they played that game, they actually just barely passed Florida State, and so now Florida State has bumped down to number 11 for me. It's a very close matchup on both sides of the ball, but I do give LSU just the slightest of edges in both. The most even matchup here for me, LSU's number 14 defense against Florida State's number 17 offense. On the other side of the ball, LSU's offense number 10 going up against Florida State's defense, which is number 19. So all 4 of these units are top 20 units. Again, LSU's number 5, Florida State's number 11. This is the marquee matchup of the week, and LSU is going to have revenge on their mind following last year's 23-24 defeat to the Noles in New Orleans. That was in LSU's backyard. Well, this year it's in Florida State's backyard in Orlando. I actually wrote about this game for thelines.com this week, so I go into much more in-depth in that article. If you're interested, go check that out. But to recap this one, I've got LSU minus 4 at this neutral site in Orlando. That equates to a 61% win expectancy for the Tigers.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually had LSU minus 4 in my second to last round of number updates. And then when I did the final numbers, it shortened a little bit to LSU minus 1.5. So definitely can understand where you're coming from. We both like LSU to win ever so slightly there. Moving on, Thursday night game, big time game with a lot of potential variance here due to some injury news, and that's Utah playing at home against Florida. Florida, a team that you and I have talked about on this show that our numbers are kind of higher on relative to kind of the general perception. I think yours ended up being just a tad bit higher than mine on the final run through there, but we're both, I think, still higher than most on Florida. Both are high on Utah, I think. And, obviously the biggest thing here, the news announced today that Cam Rising is not expected to play for Utah. But one thing I do want to throw out, and this is just from a game expectation standpoint, which is, our main goal here, but also if you're looking to bet this game, one thing that I've really noticed over the years and that I really have taken note of is when you have a key injury like this to a quarterback in particular, the market just runs to bet the other side because like, oh, there's no way that team's going to win without their starting quarterback. But one, that rarely is true because the odds makers adjust, obviously. And two, especially in this particular situation, the guy that's going to be starting, Barnes, has a start under his belt at Utah. They've had 9 months to prepare for this. This is not like a week 7 game where Cam Rising got hurt the previous week and they're having to scramble to get a guy in there. The guy that's going to be playing has experience, has had a ton of time to get ready. So I don't think it's going to make as much of a difference as a lot of people think. So I wanted to put that note out there. In terms of the numbers, Utah's number 14 power rated for me. Florida number 32. Utah on offense, I've got them 15th and 65th on defense, which is actually lower than I probably would have instinctively thought. But I've got Florida with the number 28 offense and the number 58 defense. So I project this game at Utah minus 9.5. Obviously, that's assuming full strength. There's no scientific way to do this, but kind of my personal adjustment on that would probably be about 3.5, 4 points for Rising being out. So again, not nearly as much as the market, because the market has moved to 4.5 as we sit here on Wednesday night. And I project that total at 57.5. It's currently sitting at 44. I tweeted earlier today, if that total touches 42, I'm going to be obligated to bet it because that's just a huge discrepancy. So to summarize, Utah has a 76% chance to win, according to my numbers, projected score 33-24. And then in terms of ramifications on their, season outlook and how this game could impact that, I project Utah at 8.9 wins on the season. If they win this, that barely goes up to 9.1. With the loss goes down to 8.1. But Florida, I think this game probably means more to Florida's season outlook than Utah's, because I project them at 5.8 wins, but with a win that goes up to 6.5, which, would make their most likely record bowl eligible. So otherwise they're going to be kind of flirting with that 6-6 record and potentially missing bowl eligibility. So again, another early season game here that has, long-term ramifications.
No doubt. And my numbers, Tyler, I appreciate that note at the beginning. I think that's important too, because let me get to my numbers have Utah minus 7.5, assuming a healthy Cam Rising. And I've said that a couple times now, and Florida fans keep getting in my mentions, not in a bad way. They're just like, okay, well, wait, Rising's out. So what does that mean? Like, where are we now? And I almost feel like they're expecting me to say, oh, well, now I like Florida. Like, now here we go, Gators. Like, guys, a quarterback, while they're important, it is important. It's the most important position in all of team sports. That's regardless of level. We know that to be true. Cam Rising's not worth 7.5 points. Like, I mean, he's worth a couple points. Like you said, he's not worth 7.5. So if I'm telling you who I think my numbers are going to project to win the game outright, I'm not talking about the spread. Again, I don't do that. I know that's what a lot of people care about. Tyler, I'll let you talk about that all day on this show, and I'll nod in agreement with what my numbers say too, or I'll shake my head and say, not so fast for my numbers. But for me, I'm more concerned about who's going to win this game outright. That's just how I'm viewing college football. I think people know that by this point. I'm still picking Utah to win this game, even if I'm not saying now by 7.5 points. Utah's power rated number 15 overall. They have the nation's number 12 projected offense with a healthy Cam Rising. I know they don't. That's good enough for only 4th best in the Pac-12, though, Tyler. Number 12 nationally is 4th best in the Pac-12 on the offensive side. That conference is loaded at quarterback. They're loaded on offense. Here's what's interesting, too. They have the projected number 22 defense in the nation. That's number 1 in the Pac-12. So you have a number 12 offense is 4th best in your conference. 22 defense, still really good, but 10 spots lower. number one in your conference. That just goes to show you what the Pac-12 is really all about this year, and that is the quarterbacks, that is the offenses. So I hate an injury right out of the gate for a high-profile quarterback. But for Florida, power rated 25. You said you and I probably a little bit higher on them than most out there. I agree. And you said I think you're 32. I've got them 25. 32. Yeah. So I'm really up there. I know it. They could be my outlier this year. Number 23 projected offense, number 46 projected defense. So I expect a very even matchup between the Florida offense and the Utah defense. The difference for me in this game, that Utah offense, number 12, again, even without Cam Rising, maybe you say, okay, they're not number 12. They're still top 20 without Cam Rising against a number 46 Florida defense. So, even if he doesn't play, which he's now not, we know that it came out today, this game being in Salt Lake City could ultimately be the difference. From a scheduling perspective, I like to look, forward and back, and the farther we get into the year, we'll be able to look back. Obviously can't look back for either of these two teams for games this year. This is the first one. Florida's at home against McNeese next week. There's nothing to be concerned about there. Their focus is squarely on the Utes. Utah, though, I'm not saying they're overlooking Florida. I don't think they are, and I'll get to why. But they have to travel to Baylor next week. So the Utes need to be careful not to get caught peeking forward at all in that game, because if they do, Florida's definitely talented enough that they could catch them here after a whole summer to prepare. I always say the more time the team has to prepare, or the teams have to prepare, the more it favors the underdog. Florida's the underdog here. They've had all summer to prepare. I know their travel got altered a little bit by the hurricane. Hopefully everyone down in Florida is doing all right. But they had to get out of there a little bit earlier, so they've got that going on. I still think Utah's focused on this game, though, because last year still rings for them. Just like LSU is still stung from last year against that Florida State team, Utah, 26-29 defeat in Gainesville. So to recap, my numbers have Utah minus 7.5 at home. That's with a healthy Cam Rising. That equates to a 70% win expectancy for the Utes. Even without Cam Rising, it's not going to be 70%. I still expect Utah to get the job done. I think being in Salt Lake is an absolute huge advantage for that team in this game.
Yep, absolutely. And moving right along to our next marquee game of the weekend, closer to my neck of the woods down here, this is North Carolina and South Carolina playing at a neutral site in Charlotte. South Carolina was a team I honestly kind of expected my numbers to be a little higher on this year than they are. I've still got them power rated 36 in the country. North Carolina's 25th. And I think North Carolina is a team that I'm probably not quite as high on as kind of the general consensus. I do love Drake May. I mean, he's fantastic. Their offense is great, but their offense is ranked 15th in the country for me, but their defense is 65th. And then on the other side, you got South Carolina with the 28th ranked offense and the 58th defense. So two pretty good offenses, two pretty bad defenses by my numbers going at it here in this game. I project UNC -2. The line is UNC -2.5. So pretty much in lockstep with the market here. I project a total of 62.5. The over-under currently sits at 64.5. So I've got North Carolina with a 53% chance to win this game. Projected score is about 32-30. And then in terms of impact on the season win totals here, I've got North Carolina at about 8.4 currently. If they win that goes up to 8.8. Whereas South Carolina, again, another game here with potential, bowl ramifications. I've got South Carolina projected at only 6.3 wins this year, but with a win that goes up to 6.8. So again, you hate to say, a week one game is a must win for a team, but if South Carolina wants to make a bowl this year, this is the game they kind of need. But Kelly, what do your numbers say about this one?
I agree with you. I don't want to overstate the importance of one game. However, with it being the first game of the year, in these big ones, these ones we're talking about, you don't want to take an L right out of the gate. I mean, these teams have big aspirations, and you're a little bit behind the eight ball. If you lose in week one and you're fighting an uphill battle, it's hard enough to win in college football. If you're starting behind the eight ball and an 0-1 record, it's going to get even harder, and people get tight and coaches get on the hot seat, all of that stuff. So I agree with you. Let's not overemphasize the importance, but these games we're talking about, these are important. Tyler, I totally forgot you were down there in South. You said my neck of the woods. You always had the Ohio State background. I know you got the Ohio State fandom. I'm like, this dude's in Columbus, right? I totally forgot, dude. I'm on weekly radio on Wednesdays with Mark Ryan on the Fan Upstate down there. Yeah, I'm right there in that market, dude. It's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah.
South Carolina fans hate me because my numbers are never saying good things about them. Clemson fans like me pretty good, I think, because I'm typically the numbers have liked them over the last couple of years. South Carolina maybe not so much, even though they're winning a lot of games. Okay, back to this game. I have this as the number 3 game of the week for me, behind the 2 we've already talked about. This is a number 1 game in the primetime window on Saturday. It's going to have the main screen in my basement setup that I'm looking at right here over the computer. I'm very excited. I love rivalry games. This is what makes college football so special. My only complaint is it's at a neutral site. I get it. I'm not going to complain too much because we're getting a great game. I wish it was, a home and home on the campuses here, but it's okay. We're playing this one in Charlotte. I have North Carolina -3. Again, South Carolina fans don't like me already. What else can happen here? It's a 58% win expectancy for North Carolina. It's a toss-up game. I tried to say this on radio too. I'm like, I would not be surprised if South Carolina won. It's a 42% chance that they do win. 4 out of 10 times they're going to win this game. They see that plus number and they think he hates me. Can't deal with it. North Carolina's power rated number 23. South Carolina's power rated number 36 for me. Both these teams are similar. They have good, high-powered offenses and honestly an average defense. Very little separates these defenses for me. I have South Carolina number 64 nationally and North Carolina projected number 68 nationally. The difference for me in this game then is South Carolina's offense projecting to be just a little bit better. North Carolina's offense projected to be just a little bit better. Number 14 nationally. Again, Drake May, Heisman Trophy contender. Last year had a great season until the offensive line kind of fell apart, couldn't keep him upright, and then the season got off the rails. South Carolina's offense, on the other hand, number 24 nationally. Again, scheduling note, worth mentioning, North Carolina welcomes App State to Chapel Hill next week. We all remember the 63-61 barn burner in Boone last year. So the Tar Heels... Listen, this is a rivalry game against South Carolina. North Carolina, South Carolina. I'm not suggesting they're not going to be up for it. They will. I'm just cautioning against anybody looking ahead. I really don't think the players or the coaching staff will. You might have a fan or two that's like, yeah, but what about that App State game next week? Don't look ahead, because if you do, South Carolina they are good enough and they will beat you in this game. I'm not that worried about it, but it's worth mentioning because last year's game was so electric in Boone. To recap, North Carolina -3 in this neutral site game. It's in Charlotte, in your neck of the woods, as we talked about. 58% win expectancy for the Tar Heels.
Yeah, so we're pretty in lockstep on that. I mean, even in terms of our rankings on both sides of the ball, we're pretty much in lockstep on how our numbers see these teams. So it should be a great game by all accounts. Moving on, again, another team from down here, and this is really more my neck of the woods. Clemson goes to Duke on Labor Day night, and this is a game. If you would have told someone 3 years ago that Clemson's going to open the season against Duke and the line's only going to be 13, they probably would have fell out of their chair. But here we sit. The line is Clemson -13 at Duke. Clemson's my number 12 team. Duke is my number 70 team in the country. And I do acknowledge that I'm probably lower on Duke than a lot of people, especially after, they had a great season last year. But when you really kind of look at it, the wins they had, like the numbers didn't quite love them going into this year. But I've got Clemson number 15 on offense, and that's going to be a jump for them from where they've been. And if they can get to that and even get to the next level, I think they can definitely get back to the CFP this year. I've got them. Oh, you know what? I just realized my defensive numbers for them are wrong. So.
All good, dude. Hey, let me hop in. Let me go through mine, and you on the back end, you can figure out what you're looking at over there. Because I do want to talk about this a little bit already. You said you have Clemson number 12 and Duke number 70. I'll get to my numbers here in a second. I'm very curious because they're different than your numbers. I'm very curious to see what Clemson looks like with Cade Klubnik at the helm from the get-go. I'm sure the fans down there, kind of in the upstate where you are, would have liked to have seen him earlier last year. I was pretty vocal about that. I think he should have been given the reins earlier. So we'll never know, but I think things could have turned out differently for Clemson last season if he would have gotten control of that team a little bit earlier in the year. I have the Tigers favored in all 12 regular season games with a conference best 63% chance to reach the ACC championship game. I have Clemson -13.5. I know you said it's -13. I have it -13.5. So right there with Vegas, 83% win expectancy. I have the Tigers power rated number 7 nationally. So I'm a little bit higher on them than you. But here's the bigger difference. I have Duke number 50. So I significantly higher on Duke than you at this point, Tyler. We'll see how those numbers probably converge towards the middle maybe as we get going. This is strength on strength for me. but I'm still projecting a mismatch on both sides of the ball, with the difference between the opposing units being about the same on both sides. I have Clemson's offense number 18. I think they should be able to put up some points against the Duke defense that I have number 55. That's where my Duke defense numbers are. In the matchup of strengths, then on the other side, Clemson, number 8 defense, projected best in the ACC. I fully expect them to be able to slow down a Duke offense that I have currently projected number 44 in the nation. Duke does have 2 advantages, though. This game is in Durham, and it's in week 1. I talked about it just a second ago. The longer that the underdog has to prepare, the more it favors that team. In the end, I do think Clemson is just too good. To recap, Clemson minus 13.5 on the road with an 83% win expectancy for the Tigers. Did I stall long enough? You got those numbers?
Yeah. Nice. I do apologize. I apparently had a copy and paste issue where Clemson and Duke were getting North Carolina and South Carolina's ratings. So we don't want that. We want to be accurate on this show. So going back to my numbers, I have Clemson number 12 in the country, Duke number 70. Clemson's number 27 on offense and number 16 on defense, whereas Duke is 66th on offense and 68th on defense. So, a huge advantage on both sides of the ball for Clemson. I project this Clemson minus 15.5 with a total of about 53.5. So that translates to about an 87% win probability for Clemson, score somewhere in the neighborhood of 35-19. And then in terms of their how this game could impact their seasons, I don't know that there's necessarily a huge ramification for Clemson here in terms of their season win total, because there's such a high probability they win this game anyway. They would go from 9.5 projected wins to 9.6 essentially. But Duke could go from 5.1 to basically 6, which again, bowl implications here early on. If Duke loses this game, it's going to be an uphill battle to get those 6 wins to be bowl eligible. So again, another, week 1 game that could have ramifications for whether a team's bowl eligible or not.
No doubt. Yep. I get it. And I think it's interesting, Tyler. I like that you do the, if you win, your win total is not projected this. If you lose, it's this, all else equal, roughly speaking. You could take the win expectancy, and if a team is currently at 5.5 expected wins on the year with a 70% win expectancy in this game, and they actually win it, well, now it's going to 5.8 because you just picked up an extra 0.3. The power ratings are going to change, so that's going to change your projections moving forward. But that's kind of a rough estimate for people to kind of wrap their head around. As you're saying, these numbers, you can kind of think about it that way. Again, the numbers get changed and updated, and their opponents get updated, and their opponents' get updated, and it's just a cascading effect. Those of us who are in the power rating world, we know it all too well. You can get kind of in one of those Inception type deals. But that's kind of that is if you're looking at my graphics, or you're listening to Tyler, and you look at the win expectancy, or you listen to that, and you think, okay, if they're able to pull off this win. Right now, they're projected with an 80% chance to win. If they win it, you can bump their projected win total on the year by 0.2. If they lose it, it goes down by 0.8, right? Because you were expecting 0.8 wins and they got 0. So those favorites, it's much more detrimental when they lose a game that they're a favorite in than when they actually win a game you're supposed to win. And conversely, when you're an underdog, when you win, you really jump that thing up because you were at under 0.5 wins and now you've just gotten a full one, as opposed to, if you're an underdog with a 10% chance and you lose, okay, you've lost 0.1 from your expected win total. So I love what you're doing there. I'm trying to help people conceptualize it another way that's how my brain kind of goes. But I think that's a very cool way to sum up kind of what's on the line, what's at stake for these teams in these games.
Yeah. And like you said, the rest of the variables will change. Your power rating will change, your opponents, all that. But just as kind of an easy shorthand snapshot of what ramifications this one game could have, based on the current projections. I think it's a good way to look at it and help fans, kind of contextualize it. So that's it for our main slate for the marquee matchups. Few other games here that we did want to just touch on, call out, and kind of give you guys our numbers that you may be curious about. First one, Tulane hosting South Alabama. I've got Tulane as my number 29 team in the country, South Alabama number 43. I project that game Tulane minus 5.5 with a total of 54. Kelly, what do you got on that game?
Yeah, you're much higher on both these teams. I have Tulane number 44 nationally. That is the best in the G5. South Alabama number 69 nationally, one of the best in the Sun Belt West. I fully expect them to be competing with Troy for that Sun Belt West title. I have Tulane minus 9. That's a 74% win expectancy. Tulane's a favorite in 11 out of 12 games. The only one this year they're not. Week 2, Ole Miss comes to town. That'll be a fun one for sure, but they can't look ahead because South Alabama's good enough. They can go into Tulane and get this win if they're not focused on it, but I think they will. Tulane -9, 74% win probability.
All right. And then another game with a new Power 5 team playing against a G5 team. We've got Houston hosting UTSA. I've got Houston as my number 39 team. UTSA, as we talked about before, my number 24 team. I project this UTSA -1. The line has been all over the place. It's been from UTSA -2 to Houston -2, and now back to UTSA as a favorite, which is about right and is kind of in lockstep with my numbers here. UTSA -1 with a total of 63.5 is my projection on the game.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I actually have UTSA as the better team. I don't have them as high as you in the power ratings, as we've talked about, but I have UTSA number 54. I think that's more than fair. I can't wait to see how this team plays out, and we can compare notes on this team. You could be right, and I could be looking silly. I just that you are very high on them. I'm curious to see how it plays out. I have UTSA 54. I have Houston number 61. But this game is at Houston. So literally the difference in this game for me is the home field advantage. My numbers like Houston by 1.5. It's a 54% win expectancy, guys. This is a true toss-up game. You're talking about whichever team wins, you're basically gaining a half game on your win total projections, as Tyler talks about here. Whatever team loses, you're basically losing a half game because it's almost 50-50. The difference is the home field advantage for me. I think the Houston crowd's going to be pumped up, ready to go for their first Power 5 game since really they were in the Southwest Conference, 20 plus years ago at this point, almost 30 years ago. So they're going to be ready. It's a local rival, if you will, a Texas rival. It's going to be a really good game, really close game. I'm excited about it. Houston, -1.5, 54% win probability for me.
Yeah, that's a game that, if you've got a season win total on either of these teams, it largely is going to hinge on what happens in this game.
You need it.
The last game we wanted to touch on, Penn State, WVU. I've got Penn State as my number 9 team. West Virginia is my number 75 team. The line has been pretty consistent around 19.5, 20 for the better part of the summer. I projected Penn State -25.5 with a total of 58.
I'm much closer to the line here. I'm happy to hear what Vegas has. I have Penn State -19 in this game. Penn State, my number 9 power rated team with a top 5 defense, top 20 offense. Drew Aller, keep an eye out. I mean, I know he's getting a lot of pub, a lot of hype. If he's able to play up to that 5-star status, Penn State, they've got the talent roster to really make some noise, potentially crash that CFP party. They got to pull off some upsets later in the year. But this one, -19 against a West Virginia team that I have power rated, actually number 55. West Virginia fans all mad at me too. Sounds like everyone's mad at me, at least the ones I'm talking about, because of what I put out recently about, Power 5 tiering jobs or whatever. But regardless, number 55 for me nationally. Get mad at Tyler. He's got him number 70. Don't get mad at me, West Virginia.
I bet their season win total under too. I'm surprised they haven't come for me yet.
What is the season win total? I'll give you my percentages on it. What is their win total?
I bet it under 4.5. I think I got plus money on that.
Under 4.5. I got that I have them with a 56% chance to reach 5+. But if you got it at plus money, then you got to incorporate that in there too. So I think that's probably about right around a break-even bet. It sounds like for me, based on what my numbers are. I project 4.8 wins on average, the 31% chance to go bowling for West Virginia. In this game, I don't think it happens here. In this game, Penn State -19. That's a 91% win expectancy. So let's just say, Tyler, if West Virginia were to win this game, your under bet, you'd be sweating after week 1 because they're getting 0.9 added to their win total for me essentially from this one. So gosh, I really love the way you frame that up. So yeah, no, that's what I got for this one. I'll be writing about this game actually as soon as we get off this episode. It'll be good going up probably on Thursday on thelines.com. It is the Big Ten NBC primetime game. So every single week I'll be writing for thelines.com about that game in particular. This week it happens to be Penn State, West Virginia, about 800 to 1,000 words on that game. So I'm looking forward to diving into that one here after we get off this recording. But yeah, man, it's going to be a good slate. Week 1, it's here. We're going to go wall to wall from Thursday to Monday. Gosh, Tyler, this is what we live for. This is why we do what we do, so that we can watch college football on the weekends in the fall. Like, this is what it's all about, man.
Yep. I love it. And my favorite is I love watching all the games, and then, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, getting on the computer, putting all the numbers in and seeing what the new ratings are. I'm as excited to get my own updated ratings as, hopefully our listeners are to get our updated numbers.
No doubt, dude. For me, I share that excitement. The power ratings, they're, before I go to bed, I'm setting the computer off. It's doing its running. It's doing its simultaneous solving of all the different equations it needs to. And we're getting to that, minimizing the air to get to the final ratings. I check it in the morning, make sure nothing wonky happened. Week 0, week 1, wonky stuff happens, so it takes me longer. Once we get going, I've worked out all the bugs. To me, it's on Sunday afternoon when I sit down, have an NFL game on in the background, and I'm plugging in now, what does this do to my most deserving rankings, which, of course, I don't release until Monday. That, in week 1, there's not really that informative. Week 2, even 3, 4. As we get going in the year, that, to me, that's what generates the debate. That's where people start getting all PO'd about, oh, my team, what do you mean the AP has them number 1? Yeah, Georgia fans, I know the AP has you number 1. I promise you, you will not be my number 1 team until very late in the year, if at all, during this year. It's going to depend on what everyone else is doing. But because your schedule is what it is, you've got to be very impressive in those games and maybe hope that other teams don't have, an undefeated or potentially even 1 loss to be number 1 and my most deserving. You're still going to be probably a number 1 power rated team. That's 2 separate things, as we've talked about. So anyway, I'm rambling. We're going on way too long. We passed the 30-minute mark. I'll shut up. But week 1, let's do it.
All right. Like he said, let's do it. He's Kelley Ford at KFord Ratings. I'm Tyler Shoemaker at TShoeIndex. Follow us on X. We love interacting with you guys. Love the community that we're building. Let's have a fun week 1. And if you're tailing my bets, you're reading me on vsin.com. Let's cash some bets this weekend and have a good time. We'll talk to you guys next week.